17 people died and 11 others have been hospitalised following the incident which happened in the Angelo informal settlement on Wednesday. A gas cylinder was discovered at a shack used to process gold from illegal mining. Let's take this discussion further. We're going to be joined by Zoom by forensic investigator Stan Bezuidenhout. Stan, good afternoon. Thank you for your time with us here on the SABC.
Good afternoon, Liesel. I'd say it's a pleasure, but under the circumstances, it's more sad. So yes, let's see where this goes.
No, absolutely. Perhaps this information could also help us better prepare and navigate what is at stake here. Could this accident have been avoided? How dangerous is this type of gas? Walk us through from your vantage point.
So first of all, I think from the information available in the media, and I'm not engaged or investigating the matter, so I don't have any inside information, but from what I'm reading from news reports, I think we're still in early days and we don't even know exactly what gas this is yet. I mean, I've heard people saying it's nitric oxide or nitrate oxide. I don't think it can be that, simply because nitric oxide is actually a gas that appears in the human body and is not specifically poisonous to us. What it could in fact be is that there was a nitrogen oxide used, which is kind of an etching gas or etching chemical that's used in the handling of gold and cleaning of metals, etc. Now that is often used to produce nitric acid, and when that nitric acid is mixed with hydrochloric acid, you get something called aqua regia, which is essentially a form of cyanide. Now, the thing we need to do first is to understand what we are dealing with. Was this a cylinder that contained the gas that literally leaked, and it's an original gas that caused this extreme result? Or was it a mixture of chemicals that produced the gas, and that secondary gas caused these kinds of results? Now, if I look at the results, 17 fatalities thus far, and scores others injured, rapid onset of symptoms, people were collapsing, etc. It's more likely that it's something that's an extremely noxious chemical, such as the cyanide family. But to be honest, it's not even a matter of controlling the chemicals. It's a matter of crime intelligence. It's a matter of understanding crime elements. The problem that we have is with these zama-zamas, or the illegal mining operations, run a lot, and we all have accepted now that it seems to be something that attracts a foreign crime component into South Africa. The reason why this is happening is because there's some kind of educational skill that's coming, that's imported, that's not readily available here. But more importantly, these people are left to operate pretty much at random. And if you have organized crimes, such as we know that it's take bank robberies or take cash in transit heists, where the target moves and the target has to be isolated, there's a certain kind of investigation. Here, you could respond to a zama-zama issue in one area, and they could literally pop up in another. So the problem is extremely multi-jurisdictional. They can move across borders. It can go anywhere from Rustenburg through to Kimberley and even further south to Welkom, that this kind of thing can happen. But then you have different kinds of operations. Some of them might be going after gold specifically. Some of them might be going after diamonds. And if you don't understand that environment effectively, it's going to be extremely difficult to police. There's this call to call in the army to assist. But the first thing you'd want to know is, where do you want to deploy them? Identify the target or the enemy or the crime syndicate. Look at how their operations work and where they go. And more importantly, then you must anticipate through the crime intelligence process where these kinds of operations, illegal operations, could take place. I think it's a problem that's bigger than, I'm not talking necessarily in numbers, I'm also talking in risk, than most of us even realize. And I think it's an enormous wake-up call that has come at the cost of South African lives. And I think the time has come for serious action. We cannot just discuss this and condemn anymore. We have to act now.
No, absolutely, Stan. You've cited a lot of contributing factors. Let me look at the fact that it is winter, and there are a lot of people that will be using gas cylinders, perhaps to keep warm as the country battles load shedding. Let's even look beyond the illicit activities at this point. What advice would you give them to protect themselves, navigate this winter period from your own too?
Your biggest risk from any gas is containment. So if you're inside a closed-in area, if you're inside a shack, a house, a room, or a dwelling, or even inside a vehicle, we've seen people cook inside vehicles, and you're burning gases, using gases, or you have gases in the vicinity, if those gases leak, most gases that we work with, such as your liquid petroleum, etc., is heavier than air. So it's literally like you're pouring a liquid into the room and it fills up from the ground. If you're lying down sleeping on your bed while the gas is burning and the flame goes out for any reason and the gas fills up the room, the problem is it's not like you were woken up or alerted early. By the time you realize that you're exposed, if you don't detect the smell, you're starting to lose consciousness already. So the best advice is proper ventilation. Now, it sounds kind of like a contradiction. I want the place to be warm, but I must open windows. At the very least, find ventilation low on the ground so the gas can escape low on the ground. In most of the so-called campers that are available in America, which is something I used extensively, they have gas warning devices that actually detect gases, and they have ventilation holes that are low. So you don't have to close up the top. You only have to open up the bottom. That way, hot air cannot escape the room, but the gases can escape at the bottom because they are typically heavier than air. Other than that, it's obviously a very good idea not to have any gas in your environment and to fall asleep without trying to monitor it. You've got to keep your eyes on it. Even if you set your alarm for every hour of the night and just wake up and see, is that flame still burning? Because when the flame goes out and the gas is still leaking, you're exposed, and it's life-threatening almost with any gas used for the purpose of heating.
Which brings me to my next point, because there were also reports about residents having dodged a sinkhole and now obviously the gas leak. I wonder at this point how safe the area is. How long does it take for the gas to linger, to dissipate or change form? I also want to look at the previous gas explosion that happened in Boksburg around the festive period. And although it's not the same incident, it is in the same area. What lessons could we learn from that incident in terms of the management of it?
First and most important, now let me address the first element, which is how long do the gases take to dissipate and when does the area become safe? You can only declare the area safe when you've done physical gas measurements. There are instruments that can measure the presence of gases, and since they are often heavier than air, they could be lying in low-lying areas. Children could climb into a pit or a water depression or even into a sinkhole to play, and there could be gases that are accumulated there. It's extremely dangerous. And then secondly, these gases don't typically just evaporate out of their own. They have to kind of be washed away by the prevailing air or the air movements around them. So I'd say the area won't be safe until it's declared safe by the appropriate emergency services, such as the fire services. As far as the Boksburg explosion is concerned, I'm unfortunately not in a position to comment on that, simply because I was engaged in the matter and I was involved in the investigation, and it's now an ongoing legal process. But on all gas incidents, any interaction with gases by anybody, whether it's in the form of on trucks, whether it's in the form of in your household, whether it's in gas lines that are installed in the ground, gases are poisonous. They are extremely noxious. They do cause fatalities. And whenever you're around gases, you want to look for several signs. The first sign you want to look for is odors. Most gases that we consume have odors. In this case, people described an extremely pungent odor. That comes from either the nitrogen oxide, from nitric acid, from hydrochloric acid, or from the actual aqua regia or the cyanide. And those smells are terrible. When you smell any gases, you should move away from the area immediately and immediately call for assistance. The second thing is you must keep your eyes open and look for anything that looks like it's transporting or containing gases. Gas cylinders that are not properly maintained, anything that's rusted, anything that looks damaged, anything that looks old. By the time it's very difficult to open and close your gas cylinder, it's a risk to you. If you hear any hissing sounds of any kind, be it soft hissing sounds or loud hissing sounds, it could be the precursor of what we call a blevy or an explosion from gases. So gases are unfortunately not things we can easily see. So we have to trust our instincts. If we smell funny smells, we should become nervous. If we see things that look like they contain any gases or can contain any gases, we should decide whether we can trust that environment. Do they look new? Do they look well maintained? Do they look properly secured? Are they tied down? Or are they simply lying in a veld somewhere? Some gases have no odors at all, so you won't even know you're exposed to it. So there's no easy vertical warning strategy for anybody. Look, listen, smell, evacuate. That's as good as I can conclude that.
Stan, thank you for joining us here on the SABC, for weighing in on the matter. Forensic investigator Stan Bezuidenhout. Really just giving us an update as we continue to monitor the developments. We do understand at this point Ekurhuleni Municipality is considering engaging with the various embassies. This is the countries of origin, in fact, are the victims of the deadly gas leak, of course, that, as we understand, happened in Boksburg East. We understand that 17 people had died, 11 others have been hospitalised. So we'll continue to monitor perhaps and see what unfolds from here on too.